Hi everyone, Wesley here from Stress Free Income. In today's video, I'll be sharing some thoughts on investment psychology. All humans have an emotional and psychological constitution. These deeper and more complex layers are what determine our moment-to-moment decision making. To use an analogy, if the world of investment was a game, our psychology would be like the referee and will ultimately determine how the game is called. Mastering your own psychology will be a chronic, lifelong endeavor for investors. And as it is something that is intrinsically linked to our humanity, it is not something that will ever go away, and therefore it needs to be managed. The first step to managing human emotion and psychology is awareness. Without drifting off into a spiritual domain, as an investor we do need to practice and develop a degree of mindfulness. Mindfulness is becoming aware of your emotional and psychological state before entering a trade or investment. Or retrospectively, if you have made a bad trade or poor investment decision, it would be useful after a few days to revisit what happened with a bit of mental clarity, so that you can not just learn from the mistake, but understand what motivated your action at that point in time. Now, when it comes to investment psychology, what we need to realize is that volatility in the market is a product of human irrationality. The collective human rationality in the marketplace exists on a continuum, with fear on the one end of the spectrum and greed being on the opposite end of that spectrum. Let's define some terms quickly, as the words greed and fear may be slightly uncontextualized to some people in the context of investment. Greed can be defined as the intense desire for wealth and power, where there is an irrational hope to become rich very soon. In other words, extreme overconfidence. Similarly, fear can be defined as an unpleasant emotional state with a high dread of loss, where there is an irrational anxiety that prices will go down even further. In other words, extreme underconfidence. As fear and greed oscillate, markets go through cycles. Where the price rises, we call this a bullish trend, and where the price falls, we call this a bearish cycle. Let's first explore the greed side of the spectrum. During bullish or upward trends, the market experiences euphoria, and as we see prices moving upwards, the value of your portfolio can be seen to increase by hundreds or even thousands each day. During this phase of the market, people become very susceptible to FOMO, or fear of missing out. Basically, when prices are surging, you may feel a sense of missing out on this incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and will be likely to be sucked into chasing a price rally. What also tends to happen in this phase of the market is that as greed rises inside people, they become delusional and believe that the current trend will last indefinitely. Of course, in hindsight, a bit of experience reveals that no stock continues going up forever. Eventually prices will find resistance and then pull back and dump. So the risk around greed is that FOMO can cause you to buy in at the top just shortly before the price dumps, leaving you with a big fat loss. Next, let's explore some of the psychology around the fear side of the spectrum. During bearish downward trends, the market will first become disillusioned, where reality kicks in, and all of a sudden you begin to realize that perhaps this particular stock is not as amazing as you thought. Then as the price moves down further, a sense of regret kicks in. This was actually a bad idea. And then this regret finally gives way to full-scale panic and fear. When fear grips the mind of an investor, you are unable to think rationally, and you begin to think that you will lose everything, and that the price is going to zero, and that your wife will leave you, and that you'll be evicted and end up on the street, and there's no way that this coin of stock will ever recover from this wreck. Then you end up selling everything, and the moment the sale is made, that's where the loss is realized. Just as there was a presupposition during the greed phase that price will go up forever, there's a presupposition here that it's going down to zero. But again, wisdom and experience tell us that for every bottom, there is a boom that will follow. These are the market cycles that all pricing goes through. So the risk that we have here is that if fear is not managed, you could end up selling at the bottom just shortly before a big pump. Now that you have seen what fear and greed can cause, let me leave you with some tips around how you can stave off some of the damaging effects that fear and greed can have on you as an investor. Let's start with some wise words from Warren Buffett. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. What this quote means is that if you want to make profits, you need to go in the exact opposite direction of what everyone else in the market is doing. Why is this so hard to do? We see people constantly buying the tops and selling the bottoms until they are broke. The reason why this is hard to do is because it defies our natural human instinct. So essentially, the seasoned investor is someone that is aware of the greed and fear and responds in a way to maximize their profit. If you can do this, you will buy the dips and sell the tops. One word of caution here. This may seem like somewhat of a paradox, but it's worth mentioning. Even if you are doing the right thing, you can still be prone to greed and fear. What do I mean by that? I mean, wanting to sell at the very top and buy at the very bottom. Do not fall for this trap. If, for example, you sell 90% at the bottom and 85% at the top, this is still a great outcome. You should condition yourself to celebrate that and have no regrets. It's not about perfection of the entry and exit of the trade. It's about knowing the trend and being able to consistently follow that trend to a moderately profitable degree. Finally, what can we learn from the failures of others, myself included? Number 1, don't try and trade yourself out of a mess. Just stop, cut your loss and live to fight another day. Number 2, sometimes watching the charts constantly is very bad for you and will leave you a nervous wreck. Experienced traders do 2 things well and differently. A. Preparation. Instead of jumping in randomly and then obsessing over charts, plan the trade, study the trends on the higher time intervals, understand if there are any macros and fundamentals at play, set an entry price, stop loss and take profit level. If you have all of these components in place, when emotion riles up inside of you, there will be an objective point of reference to tether you. B. If you are getting frustrated and if FOMO is becoming unmanageable, close the laptop, take a timeout, go and play with your kid or walk the dog around the block. Having a pause or reset is good for the mind. Maybe even close out your positions and start again tomorrow. You will be amazed at what a good night's rest and some perspective can do. Point number 3, accountability partners. Have a few trusted people on your inside circle that you can open up to and ensure that you always tell them exactly what you're doing. It is a dangerous thing to be an island in the wilderness, and experience has shown me that it is never a good idea to do this on your own, especially when you are starting out. Accountability partners can help shed light on the blind spots we all have and subconsciously force us to check ourselves and our motives and our intent. Awesome guys, if you got some value out of this video, please go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can always be the first to get our exclusive content. And please be sure to connect with us in our Telegram group. We would love to continue these discussions in our amazing community. Finally, our vision here at Stress Free Income is to become a trusted authority in the online wealth creation space and develop a dedicated, passionate and highly engaged investment savvy subscriber base. Until next time, this is Wesley, and remember to enjoy your stress-free income.